People living in tower blocks covered in unsafe cladding are being forced to pay extra service charges to make their homes safe, according to the Greater Manchester High-Rise Task Force. In some cases, tenants have seen costs increase more than fivefold to replace the cladding and pay for additional fire wardens. Sky's Emma Birchley has this update.
You imagine you're living in a block of flats and you realise after the horror of Grenfell Tower that actually your building is covered in the same kind of combustible cladding, and all sorts of promises are made about what's going to be done. But what's quite clear is that in many cases, privately owned blocks have not seen the work carried out that should have been done. Now, in May of last year, the government promised £200 million to help sort this out with these privately owned blocks. However, that doesn't cover the full bill. And what we're seeing instead is that the cost is being passed on to the leaseholders, so the private owners of those flats. Now, this Greater Manchester High-Rise Task Force was set up by the Mayor of the city, Andy Burnham, and they've done this survey, and they've found, in one case, for example, someone's service charge has gone up from £90 per month to £480 per month. People are also seeing maintenance charges increasing, and also bottom line bills have been told, well, you'll have to maybe pay £30,000 more to get this sorted. And it's not just in Manchester. We've seen this. Actually, if you do a little bit of digging, it's happening all around the country. So in Ipswich, flat owners being told they'll have to pay up to £25,000. In Kent, in Bromley, people being told it'll be £70,000 because there's a £3.5 million shortfall on a single block of flats. Now, this is causing enormous amounts of anxiety because people are living in flats where they're very worried that it's going to be the next Grenfell Tower, but also anxiety about money. How do you find that big chunk of money when you're told, you've got to find it? People are being told by mortgage companies they can't remortgage because their flats no longer have any value. They can't sell because the buyers can't get mortgages to buy. So they're really stuck in a rut with no way of getting out. And actually on Tuesday, Andy Burnham, along with the Mayor of Salford and a bunch of residents and people from around the country are heading to Parliament to lobby MPs there and to put their case across. There's a call for more money in the budget to really help these private flat owners.
Well, earlier Sky News spoke to the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham, who described the situation tenants find themselves in.
I would describe it as a living nightmare for those people who are trapped in this situation. So, through no fault of their own, they're in a home where they're now worrying about their safety. They've seen the value of that home collapse because of the safety issues. And some of them, as our survey today shows, are paying a large amount of money on a monthly basis to pay for interim safety measures. So on every level, their life has been turned upside down, and they're now kind of trapped in this limbo where no one's coming in to help them. It's really not acceptable. What we see is the mental health of those people, thousands of them in the big cities like Manchester, Birmingham, London, in a situation where they are really suffering, but at the moment they're getting no help from the government, and it's not acceptable.
And this is affecting people who aren't wealthy in the first instance?
Yeah, that's right, just ordinary people. I mean, I've been to meetings through our task force where we've had residents present, and ordinary people doing ordinary jobs, but absolutely in despair, really, because they're trying to fight this, but they can't, because it's such a massive issue, and people in tears, really at their wits' end. And it was when I was at a meeting recently that I said, look, this just can't carry on, and I committed to hold this lobby of Parliament. So that will take place on Tuesday. We've got MPs like Hilary Benn, Lucy Powell, who've been leading the campaign, but by coming together now with mayors from the big cities, we think we can kind of get this issue raised properly ahead of the budget, and I hope the government will use the budget to sort this terrible situation out.
As the Mayor of Greater Manchester, I mean, do you have any powers to stop this from happening to people?
No, I don't. This is a situation that's not of our making at this level, and certainly not of the residents' making. I would say it's a failure of regulations at a national level, but also I think the property industry may bear some of the responsibility here, and it has to be sorted out at that level, the national level, with government working with the property industry. They've got to remove this cladding. There was a fire here in Salford in a building with cladding Thursday, just a couple of days ago, and people will remember the fire in Bolton last year. That was very reminiscent of Grenfell, and it was a miracle actually that nobody was seriously hurt there. So every day that the government leaves this cladding on these buildings is another day when they're gambling with people's safety, and it really isn't acceptable, and it mustn't be allowed to carry on any longer.
I can speak now to Christopher Miers, founder of the construction dispute resolution group Probyn Miers. Hello to you, Mr. Miers. We heard there from Andy Burnham talking about a dual response needed, both at a governmental level, but also the property industry needing to take responsibility to protect these individuals who say they feel trapped in properties that aren't safe and that they can't get out of because they just can't sell them. What is the solution? What can the property industry be doing?
Well, Sarah, I think a lot's been done already, but we need more collaboration. What you'll have seen is in the last few months, the RICS and Mortgage Council has come up with a proposal, a standard form for evaluating risk on these tall buildings. But we haven't yet, in my view, completed sufficient collaboration, because what we're finding is that those that have the skill to come forward and help owners and residents to evaluate risk often are put off in a way by their own risks through their professional indemnity insurance, for example. And so I think, in a sense, the collaboration process is partway through, but we need more collaboration. I think the other people, in terms of stakeholders, that we don't see engaged at the moment, in my view, are the actual manufacturers of the materials that, of course, have great knowledge and experience that can be brought to bear to assist in every situation.
Yeah, government data last month revealed that more than 21,000 flats are still living, 21,000 households rather, still living in flats wrapped in the aluminium composite material, the ACM cladding that was used at Grenfell. Why is it taking so long to get rid of that cladding and replace it?
Well, I'm not familiar with each and every project, and every project by now should have had a proper fire risk assessment, and an independent assessor will have evaluated the safety of residents. And so nobody should be living currently in a situation where they are at risk without other measures having been put in place. So the truth is that then to actually initiate and instigate a process of replacement does take time, but frankly 2 years seems a long time to have waited.
Yeah, in terms of the removal of the cladding, what does it involve? Are there easy alternatives to it? I was reading a report about residents in one block close to Grenfell who say that they've had the cladding stripped off, and as a result, their flats are cold and damp. So that doesn't seem like a solution either.
Absolutely not. And if necessary, of course, some interim measure, some temporary protection should be put in place. What we've got to realise is when you look at the outside of these tall buildings, nearly always there are three important parts to the risk. One is the outer cladding, and we've got a lot of awareness now about what people call ACMs, of course. But behind that is the insulation, and that also has a relevance and needs to be assessed, normally by investigation. But there is also a third element that we must keep in mind, which is the what we call the fire cavity barriers, which close off these the cavities behind windows and play an important role in preventing the spread of smoke and fire. So when one's looking at replacement, all these three elements need to be evaluated, not only the outer panels.
OK, Christopher Miers, thank you very much indeed for talking to us here on Sky News.